Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Patafi. As I said yesterday, I'm not going to discuss again Kulbhushan Yadav's verdict. Once again, we are going to focus on China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the Prime Minister's visit to China recently, that actually concluded yesterday, and then the entire scope of OBOR and CPEC. And what exactly does it promise for Pakistan? Remember one thing, yesterday we also saw a report coming in one of Pakistani papers allegedly revealing the master plan. I kept on actually reading it, I read it many a times, and even if it was true, although the federal government is contradicting the report, but even if it was true, I didn't find any problem at all. This is a changing age and one has to actually take into account technology and capacity building. I felt that actually capacity building was at play here. So today we are going to talk about all these matters, and in order to help us understand these matters, we have with us Dr. Ahmad Rashid Malik Saab, strategic analyst, has also visited and was also participated in the Belt and Road Summit that took place in Beijing. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is a regular in this show, one of my favorites, Ambassador Ali Sarwar Naqvi Saab. And Ambassador Saab, as name suggests, is a career diplomat, also one of the strategic thinkers. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. We are anticipating a third guest as well. The moment he arrives, I'm going to introduce him as well. So I have to start with you, Ali Sarwar Naqvi Saab. Your take at this moment on this event. A lot of people are saying that this was launch of a massive world power. Was it like that, or it was something altogether different?
Well, you see, they attribute all kinds of significance to major events. It certainly is a major event. It certainly is very significant. But whether it is the launch of a superpower,
or new world order for that matter,
new world order, that is something that is to be seen, and one should not anticipate.
Shouldn't be speculating about these matters for now.
Shouldn't characterize them like this at this stage. You see, and
by the way, there is another question also. India boycotted, by the way.
Yes.
And that was astounding because Indian press is criticizing their own government.
Yes.
What do you make of this boycott?
There is, one of the top Indian analysts, Mr. Bhadra Kumar, who has written a very incisive article 2 days ago, in which he said that India has lost out. Okay. India is not in the mainstream anymore because 28 countries have participated in the OBOR summit,
right,
and all at the head of state or head of government level, and they have now put their heads together for a very major project of this entire region, which is the Silk Road, the road, the land route, as well as the maritime route. So
right.
These two lines that will be drawn for the entire region going
not only regions, entire world more or less,
and for more than half the world actually.
Half the
yes.
world, yeah.
So
that is true, and actually that also reminds me of one of the beautiful books that I've read recently, Frankopan's Silk Roads. But Dr. Malik, before I come to you, with your permission, let me welcome the third guest who has just joined us, Dr. Abid Qayyum Saleri Saab, Executive Director, Sustainable Development Policy Institute. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Now, Dr. Malik, your take on the efficacy of this event and what Pakistan gained out of it.
I participated in that conference, and I must say that it was a historic occasion, and a number of countries, over 30 countries, if we even include China, 30 world leaders were there. And the crux of the matter is that all leaders, they are showing their interest to join One Belt, One Road or Belt and Road project. And the basic aim of the initiative is connectivity.
Right.
And if you look at connectivity, all kind of connectivity, whether you call it road connectivity, whether you call it air connectivity, you call it maritime connectivity, you called it communication connectivity, trade connectivity.
Right.
So the whole region, I mean, even all these 5 continents are going to be integrated. And that is the crux of the matter.
Right.
And
here's the interesting thing. Yesterday, I was actually following Indian press, their media, their television especially. And some of the analysts or experts were trying to actually put a spin on it, and they were trying to present it as a massive colonization project all over the world. Do you agree with that?
I totally disagree, because we have such a grand gathering of galaxies of leaders at that conference. And all leaders, they are actually talking about openness, globalization, connectivity, and trade promotion, and removing of all kind of trade barriers. So this is a new kind of openness which is now emerging. So protectionism, those kind of things are actually now a story of the past.
Right.
Now China is influencing, no, China is colonizing, not at all.
Dr. Malik, I'm intrigued by this statement that protectionism is a tale of past, because we look at Donald Trump's policies, we look at so many other policies, and one feels that all of a sudden protectionism is coming back. It is in vogue. Yeah. But let me go to the resident economist on the panel. Dr. Salari, your take on the economic benefits of the project. And we are talking about Belt and Road, not only CPEC.
Well, Farag, when we're talking of Belt and Road Initiative, first thing first, you and I, we can be very good friends. When it comes among states, it's a state interest that are prime.
Right.
And one can very easily say that the 29, 30 countries who were sitting there, of course, all of them, they had their own national interests, and they were trying to find some commonalities.
Right.
And as long as their interests, they converge, of course, they will be together. The moment there is any divergence, they would not be together. And the reason India didn't jump the bandwagon, of course, India right now can't see that its quote-unquote national interest, they are converging with this Belt Road Initiative.
Right.
Now, in that context, when we are talking of...
You're telling us that India that wanted to isolate Pakistan actually maneuvered itself into isolation.
We will discuss it.
That is quite fascinating, actually.
We will discuss it. Now, when we are talking of this whole initiative and quote-unquote colonization, my answer is yes and no.
Okay.
And the reason...
Part yes as well.
Part yes as well.
Okay.
For example, you see, China is an alternative for developing countries trying to be an alternative of IMF. And that's why they had their...
Asian Infrastructure Bank.
Asian Infrastructure Development Bank. They had their own development fund as well.
Right.
An alternative to World Bank. Now, when we talk of World Bank is a membership-based organization. IMF is a membership-based organization.
Right.
One can academically say, don't they colonize? They do. They have their own terms and conditions. So multilateral organizations per se.
Let us hope that this doesn't become a critique of neoliberal policies.
Be it WTO, be it IMF, be it World Bank, be it any other multilateral institution. So they have their own agendas, if you can say. Now, the reason I say it's no, because so far the good thing about China is wherever it is entering, either the investment or trading or economic influence, it doesn't try to interfere in your domestic politics.
Okay.
And that is a subtle difference between your Western development partners and China. So Western development partner, when they start working with you, they have their own terms and conditions. They will tell you, you are not doing well on this thing, you are not doing well on this thing. This government is perhaps not serving democracy.
So the Chinese are not going to micromanage.
So Chinese, they don't micromanage, and that provides some sort of flexibility for the domestic government.
Well, let me point out humbly that I disagree with your sort of implication that it is sort of colonization. I agree that civilizationally China and the West, even India, are very different. China has never, 5,000 years, I have not seen it colonizing any major country and focusing on that kind of expansionism. Other countries have, even India has. So that is a very interesting point. But when you look at the Dawn Story ambassadors, Naqvi, what do you make of it?
About Obor.
Obor and CPEC, that came yesterday. It was quite pithy. There was a lot of details in it as well.
Yes. Yes, I think the whole project, the entire concept will be subject to all kinds of debates and discussions. But the real points, the core issues in this regard is that China is spearheading a new initiative, and that will bring together large number of countries in terms of connectivity and trade and communications, etc.
Right.
And I do not agree with this the term colonization,
Okay.
either yes or no, because this is a peculiarly European
Concept?
phenomena, that the Europeans created that and the Europeans applied it to the rest of the world. It goes back to the original Portuguese spread into Asia.
Asia, that's true.
When their maritime strength grew. And then the British came, the French came, the Germans went into Africa. They all jumped into it.
But sir, with due respect, Japan also invaded Manchuria. There are other countries. India has been invading in history.
Yes, well, there have been minor, because there have been some minor efforts on these, on the part of these countries also, because this somehow became the norm. Europe actually led the world and for a long time. And colonization was something that they initiated and they practiced. Now, this is a post-colonial era, as people say. So, the colonial phase is over. So
Right.
today, you cannot colonize any country. And China is the last country to think about colonizing, because China has not done it. China and Pakistan, the example of Pakistan, we should talk about our own country. China and Pakistan have been very good friends.
Yeah.
Never, ever did China interfere in Pakistan's political system or its domestic
Actually,
affairs.
that is a very good testimonial.
Yes.
If you're talking about these things, the world has to know Pakistan's story. Maybe some help could have actually changed our political system in the past as well, but nothing of the sort happened. They have stayed out.
They stayed
totally
out, yes.
Never tried to export their own culture.
Right.
Even the Chinese food that we actually eat in this country is not quite mainland China food.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And China has dealt with whatever government has been in power in Pakistan, irrespective of how they assumed power and what was the background and all that. So I think China, as Mr. Suleri said, believes in the principle of non-interference, and that is something that is a hallmark of their foreign policy.
Right, sir. Ambassador Naqvi, that is a state policy, right?
Yes.
But one has to talk about their business sector as well and the way they invest. There are certain questions that I'm going to actually put in the next session. But sir, you wanted to say something earlier? Colonization and all?
On colonization, I should say that today this world looks very funny, and
How funny?
very funny.
Okay.
Because
No, how come funny?
how come funny? Because it does not exist today, and in today's state system, it does not exist. And today, all sovereign nations, there are all sovereign nations, and so no power can exert any kind of even unwarranted influence on any part.
Right.
And if you talk about Chinese foreign policy, you see that Chinese foreign policies basically revolves around the principle of peaceful coexistence. 5 principle of peaceful
Panchil,
coexistence. So there is no question.
They were mentioned yesterday, day before yesterday as well. Panchil.
Yes. So there is no question that China is going to colonize any country, or China is even putting even influence, political influence on any country.
But Dr. Malik, it is $1 trillion have already been spent on Belt and Road project, and there are many trillions of dollars that are going to come. So there has to be some kind of reciprocity, that if you are investing, you are gaining something as well. So what exactly is that China is bound to gain out of it?
You see, with or without Belt and Road, China is emerging as global economic power. And meanwhile, when even China is a developing country at this stage, and but China's influence is tremendous because of economic rise.
Right.
And at this moment, even China decided to share its development experience with all countries. With at least China has shown to share its development experience with 68 countries. And with these 68 countries, you can see that the Chinese trade with them is over 3 trillion at the moment. So when development experience is shared among large number of countries from
hang on. But my question is that we have already established China as a giver. But there has to be some kind of, if you are giving something out, you must be expecting something back as well in response. So what exactly is that?
Oh, I think that is leverage of China.
Leverage?
Yeah, it's not influence.
So
but
it is political, not economic?
Leverage, yes, not political, but it's economic
political
leverage
or not? Sorry?
Economic leverage of China.
What exactly is economic leverage?
I mean, China's rise, and because of its size of economy, the influence will be greater.
So they want to ensure that they have dedicated markets.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Dr. Salari, you agree with this observation?
You see, we are perhaps going into semantics, so
it's technically not semantics.
It's
trying to understand.
It's not colonization. What we are trying to say.
We have moved on actually.
No, but it's a continuation of the same thing.
Yeah.
What is China's interest in it?
Okay.
Where Dr. Malik was saying, it is about creating a business model where you can engage and involve. And this model, I'm not saying that it's good or bad. It would, if it's working in our favor, it's very good. If it would not work in our favor due to internal or external circumstances, or due to if it's not working in any of the partners' favor, it doesn't mean that the model is not good. So it's an economic model whereby, of course, China is trying to engage the region and region plus, and then trying to create niche markets, not only for commodities but also for services, and also not only for manufactured product, but also for this built and transfer type of projects.
Right. So whatever surplus produces there, they want to export it.
Even if it's not a surplus that is produced. For example, if we talk of energy projects in Pakistan, right now, contrary to the fact that many people think that they are loans, they are not loans. They are investment. But the model of investment is, of course, quite interesting, and it can play for it can work for us. It may not work for us.
Okay.
So the model of investment is that Chinese investor, they will get funds from China Exim Bank or from China Asia Infrastructure Development Bank. They will bring their money here. They would invest here. NAPRA has already decided a tariff, and then for that tariff, government of Pakistan is offering them a sovereign guarantee for X number of unit, the capacity payment, and for a certain period of time. Now that is very assured investment. So of course, because now China have this sort of mechanism through vehicle through which it can offer loans to its private sector,
Right.
that private sector then can go and it can find investors, and it's a win-win situation. So I'm not saying it's
I get this point in energy sector where maybe we don't have that kind of huge investment already or competition.
Right.
But
For
there
example,
are other sectors.
For example, in case
there
of
is a fear.
No,
Sir,
but
humbly,
for
allow
a
me to actually just
no, let me
point
complete.
out.
Let me complete.
Let me add to it.
Okay.
Okay. There is this fear that Chinese investors will actually crowd out our local investors. So is that a possibility?
Well, it's again up to us when we will be offering these special economic zones,
Okay.
right? And when we will be giving these SROs for the businesses, it's up to us. It's a domestic policy that we will be planning, and that's why I said that it's up to the recipient country whether we can get benefit out of it or we can't.
Okay.
Either we can put some sort of clause in it that every investor would have to take maybe 10%, 20% of the raw material from Pakistan, or would have to employ X percentage of, and it would be purely a negotiation between private sector to private sector.
So do we have that kind of
I'm sure,
safeguards in place?
I'm sure our policymakers, while they are negotiating it, they should have this in mind, and they must
No,
be.
but can we be sure of these things?
Well, because one can say that innocent until proven guilty.
Okay.
So I'll give the benefit of doubt to our negotiator, unless
but
and
it is not actually a criminal case. So
unless and until anything comes in black and white,
Right.
One should be optimistic that these sort of safeguard mechanisms, those would be there. Earlier you asked the question to Ambassador Naqvi about yesterday's Dawn story. I think while government tried to oversell CPEC, opposition and some part of media, they tried to over criticize CPEC.
Right.
Now, many of the things which were there in the story yesterday, they are already existing.
Right.
Now, corporate farming bill and corporate farming act, it was actually introduced by General Musharraf
Right.
back in 2001, and all the privileges and all the offers that we are now discussing, those are already part of our law. We have this corporate.
That is one thing. And the second thing is some of the Arab countries are actually benefiting from that arrangement as well.
Even some of our domestic politicians, one or two of them who are now in opposition, they also
Right.
they also benefited out of this corporate.
Maybe one of them is a secretary general of a party.
Well, you know
Okay,
better.
I don't want to name names.
You know better, but
you get the picture.
But the corporate farming, actually, many local as well as external investors, they got benefit of it.
Right.
Second, when we say that, for example, Chinese, they would come and they would have their TV channels and they would have culture invasion. So, but what is the problem in having a Chinese TV studio? If we can watch Al Jazeera and BBC and CNN
No, that is
and
okay.
Bollywood.
The problem is you have fought 4 wars with only one country and their content actually plays on your networks all the time.
No, but this is what I'm trying to say, that perhaps we should not be.
What is the worst that can happen?
We should not be skeptic about these things.
Right.
And we have to assess it on merit.
Right. Ambassador Saab, I've seen our Foreign Office actually working on details of various agreements. Very meticulously done. Very hard work goes into it. The question at this moment is that are there enough safeguards in place? Because crowding out of the investor, local investor, is one concern. The other is, of course, job creation and crowding out of employees, possible employees, that what if Chinese citizens come over and take over all the jobs, what happens then? So do we have that kind of safeguards, do you think?
Well, in the first place, let me say that it might, instead of crowding out our investors, it might be a fillip and a stimulant to our investors, because our problem is that investment is not taking place.
Right.
The local investors are putting their money in land and property and in hotels and in all kinds of
Television channels.
and setting up newspapers.
Okay.
Now, they should be stimulated and induced to invest in industry and in projects that can yield service industries or manufacturing.
Does it not concern you that when we had this energy crisis in the country in past 10 years, many of our local businessmen actually migrated their businesses to Bangladesh and other countries?
Yeah,
This can also happen.
That is another problem. There is another problem. that is our bureaucracy. You see, you were talking about regulations and safeguards. The regulations and safeguards are plenty. The problem is that there are too many because they block the investor and the entrepreneur from making his investment. I know why they have gone to Malaysia and to Bangladesh and to Sri Lanka is because they are fed up with the kind of restrictions and hindrances that they face here. So
Bangladesh has more ease of doing business compared to us?
It used to, but now there is a political factor. The Bangladeshis don't like Pakistanis, and I have seen many of these investors worry about their investment in Bangladesh because they say that now they are very, very unwelcome and being treated very badly.
Okay.
So
you're probably talking about their government, not the
that's
people,
right.
because
Not
my
the
recent
people.
experience
No,
has
no,
been
but the government,
very positive.
The government is hostile to Pakistan.
Yeah,
Let's
they
be
are.
very clear about it. And that is very unfortunate, and that must be remedied. But it can't be done only by one side. I mean,
Is it possible, instead of having too many regulations, you have regulations that take care of the fact that the local businessman and local job seeker doesn't suffer?
right. And I think it will create a lot of jobs for Pakistanis. How many Chinese will come here? I mean, a few thousand? They can't all come over here. Our country is 200 million strong.
Yeah,
So,
but this is a very interesting argument because we are next door.
we are next door, but you know,
They can always come over.
Farokh, I think we should be open. If you close, you yourself said protectionism is out. Now, we should open up.
No, actually, he said protectionism is out. I said that it is coming back.
Well, yeah, you said it's coming. True, but it can't last. Even if people try to, even if Trump and some of these rightists try to, inject protectionism again, I don't think it'll work. Now, in this situation, I think we should be open to competition. We should welcome competition and let our entrepreneurs face that and let them be challenged to also meet that.
Ambassadors are all open to this idea of competition. My only concern is that our state, given that it had too many burdens, too many liabilities, has not been able over the past few decades to invest in people's skills. And that is the problem. Somebody comes with skills, skill sets, they can take over, and by the time I learn it, I won't have even an opening level job. And that is the concern. What do you have to say on that, sir?
Regarding job situation?
Yeah, not only job situation, regulations. Creating enough barriers that anybody, and I'm not only talking about Chinese, I'm a huge fan of Chinese wisdom. My concern is that there will be other investors in coming days as well. Shouldn't we have some kind of minimum, barriers or regulations that ensure that our local investors, our local businessmen, our local job seekers get what they need?
I think that the economies are moving toward competitiveness, and we are moving toward global economy.
Okay.
And as I said before, I will repeat again.
Partly yes, partly no.
That we can't move back to protectionism. And yes, you can have some regulations, but still you live in that international environment, and you have to abide by so many international obligations as well.
Right.
Regarding jobs situation in the past 2 years under the CPAC, I should say that over 60,000 jobs, direct and indirect jobs, have been created for Pakistani.
But they are temporary jobs, labor jobs and stuff like that, right?
Yes, basically.
So temporary jobs. The moment the project is finished, they are over.
The moment the project is not
it's
going
like
to
labor,
be,
right?
Yes, you see that the first phase of the project is going to be ended in 2030.
Okay.
And even in future, it will continue.
Okay.
So it's not a short-term project, it's a long-term project. And it will create many job opportunities for our people, for our labor. And regarding the flow of Chinese workers, I should say that if you look at the wages situation in China and you look at the wages situation in Pakistan, there is a glaring disparity.
Okay.
You know, why a worker from Peking, for example,
And what
Beijing-
about job, unemployment there? There must be unemployment, right?
Yes, unemployment is everywhere. But the question is that if I go to Afghanistan and if I, for example, I receive less money, why should I go and live in Afghanistan?
Yeah, but
I will go to a country where I get better job opportunities. So if
But there
I can
was,
give you one data.
with due respect, regarding yesterday's Dawn story, there was one thing that actually people kept on discussing, and that was worrying for a bit. Then government of Pakistan stepped in and said it is all untrue. But they said that the Chinese people of China will have free access to Pakistan without visa. That is amazing. On one side it is great. On the other, if you actually remove every kind of barrier, that opens the floodgates to maybe jobs and so many other things. I'm bringing this question to you as well. Let him finish.
Visa-free entry for Chinese people into Pakistan. I should say that visa for Chinese workers, I think it's a very recent development between Pakistan and China. Since we established diplomatic relations with China in 1950, and prior to 9/11, there was no visa system between Pakistan and China.
Really?
And the other
I
thing
always
is,
remember we had to travel on a visa to China.
and if you go and see the people in Hunza and Gilgit-Baltistan, these people have free entry into China.
Yeah, but they're sort of locals. They're next door neighbors.
Okay. In spite of that, what you said, I should say that when the countries are making huge development, making strides for investment, opening their market, they are always relaxing visa regimes.
No, that is true. But we are in an age where TPP is gone, NAFTA might be on the line next. So many other agreements might be actually totally thrown out of the window. So we cannot say that this actually qualifies as a trend. We have to make sure that our local population, 200 million of our citizens, also get jobs. And there should be, I'm really thankful that the Chinese are doing such a great thing. The only concern is that one has to have everything worked out. What is your take, Dr. Saleri?
Well, as far as visas, we have these visa on arrival for so many investor countries. And I think China is already part of that list. If you are an investor, you can come and you can get your visa on arrival.
Right.
But if we are thinking of opening up the visas, anyone who can come and can get visa on arrival, there must be some reciprocity.
Yeah.
For example,
I love that.
For
if
example,
there is reciprocity, I love that.
For example, now China doesn't give visit visas to Pakistani citizens. You have to have a sponsorship from a business, and only then you can visit. You can't go and visit China. So if the reciprocity is there, then I don't mind opening up my borders for any country which offers me this reciprocal treatment.
And China has been,
but if it is a unilateral, then of course I'll have my reservation.
If you don't have China, what do you have got? Right, as an ally. China has been very close ally for 50 years.
No, but I'm talking of reciprocity. Even if it's a close ally, I'm talking of reciprocity, and that principle has to be maintained. If it's only about the investors, that policy is already existing. So there are more than 24 countries. If some investor is coming to invest in Pakistan, they can get their visa on arrival.
But are you sure we are not looking a gift horse in its mouth?
Well, this is up to us. This is CPEC or Belt Road Initiative. As I said in the beginning, it's neither good nor bad. It's up to us whether we turn it into an opportunity.
Why is it that I see an underwhelming response apart from the government of Pakistan, television analysts, investors, business houses, opposition parties, provincial governments, with the exception of PMLN's governments? I don't see that kind of enthusiasm. Why exactly?
You see, when anything big going to happen or any business as unusual going to happen, there people there always have reservations. So, of course, something looks too good to be true.
Okay.
And of course, now many of the critics.
You're telling me that the entire country has become a bunch of cynics. That's why whatever comes our way, even if it is a great news like CPAC,
no,
we have to be cynic.
Farooq, the problem is it's not about being cynic. The problem is because CPAC to begin with was not conceived by the policymakers of Pakistan.
Okay.
It is part of Belt Road Initiative. So there are many things.
Hang on. Present government says it was its initiative. The previous government says it is their initiative. And the man who used to rule the country before that, the General Saab, actually says it was his initiative.
And Shaukat Aziz Saab was there as a speaker. He would say that it was his initiative. But I would say that CPAC is not Pakistan's initiative. Belt Road Initiative is a broader framework that Chinese government did. We happen to be part of it.
No, but using Gawad has been
let me complete
in our lexicon for 30 years.
Let me complete my argument, please. Now, people, they are cynic because they don't know the figure and facts, and they don't know the figure and facts because government of Pakistan, they don't have negotiated many of the things in nitty-gritty yet, because we didn't conceive it.
So along with the permission to share the master plan?
So it's not, no, it's not that the government doesn't want to share, because government hasn't yet finalized the nitty-gritty, and that is where government should be upfront, and they should say that we have finalized the agreement for these 8 things. For these 6 we are still negotiating. This is what Hassan Iqbal tweeted yesterday, that the plan which was in the dawn, it was an old and new things, they are being negotiated, which is fair enough. So they should say that we are still in the process of negotiation, and the moment things they would be final, we will share
but
with the
with due respect, can't we actually start disclosing the documents that we have got and then keep on updating them?
Well, we can. We should.
With the passage of time.
Ideally, we should have done it. But if we haven't done it, or if we don't know, another problem that I find here in the federal government, there is Economic Affairs Division dealing with it. There is Ministry of Commerce dealing with it. There is Ministry of Planning dealing with it. There is Board of Investment dealing with it. There is Ministry of Finance dealing with it.
Right.
So although we theoretically we have a central point or nodal point planning commission, but then we know
which has the secretariat.
But then we know that all these 5-6 ministries, they also need to finalize the details.
No, that is true. But that is what happens with a country with democracy and diffusion of power.
But then we should be upfront, and we should say that we are not trying to hide anything. We are finalizing it, and that would be much sane and much wiser
option. You remember
option.
how many times I sat here and I have discussed CPAC. I would have loved to see these documents just going forward, so that I could also discuss these matters. The problem is whenever you have secrecy, whenever
then there is room for rumors.
Of course, and there is lack of clarity that actually creates a lot of distortions that are not positive. Ambassador Saab, you want to add to it?
Yeah, you see, there are 2 or 3 points that I'll just quickly comment on. The visa thing and also the regulations. You are right. Basically, we have to ensure that we do not give it a completely free rein to the Chinese government or whichever government it may be.
Don't give up sovereignty.
China is a friend, and they are very well disposed towards us. But we have to guard our own interests, and we have to ensure that there is proper regulation of all these things. That, I think, is something that is legitimate, and we should be alert on that. We should. Secondly, I think you are right. There is a problem of coordination. From what I can make out, by this time, there should have been a central authority in place.
There is technically one.
There is one, but it is, when there is a major project. Like I remember that when Franklin Roosevelt set up the Tennessee Valley Authority, because this was the biggest dam project that they had conceived, and they set up the TVA, and that handled all investment, all jobs, all contract to small contractors, all this. So I think in due course of time, we should have clarity about it. Even if you don't have a central authority, that is for government to decide. There should be clarity what Ministry of Commerce should do, what the Economic Affairs Division should do,
Right.
what the Privatization Commission should do, and Planning Commission, how it is going to coordinate with all this.
Right.
So that, I think, is something that is very
No,
necessary.
I tell you another problem as well, with due respect. There's a Western friend talking to me, and we were talking about this central authority. He said, by the way, there is a central authority that is the Planning Commission. The only problem is that the man who is in charge of the project has a word professor before his name. So whenever he speaks, it tends to be soporific. You actually zone out and you don't focus. I don't agree with him, but I just wanted to mention
Yeah,
it.
no, I mean, he is doing as best as he can, and I think he is quite proactive. But it is necessary to underpin all this with proper system of regulations.
There should be
of
clarity, there
controls.
should be transparency,
Yes.
and there should be access to
Yes,
information.
and talking of visas, for example, going back to it, the Chinese visa is quite a difficult visa to obtain.
It is, and very expensive too.
And very expensive. So many of my friends who have to go to China have approached that, you know, I should ask somebody in the Foreign Office to help them.
By the way, with due respect, if as a Pakistani I talk about visa for other countries, I have a lot of difficulty there too. So this is the problem.
There
as
is the
well.
problem in many countries. In fact, there are many countries where the problems are so enormous you are surprised. Like try to go to Kenya, try to go to Malaysia now, or any of these. To get a Hong Kong visa is extremely difficult.
Central Asia.
Central Asia. So there we have to, in fact, talk to these countries that legitimate visitors should be given ease of access,
Right.
and they should have all the checks.
Maybe we have to actually work on our diplomatic muscle
Yeah.
and economic muscle.
Yeah.
If we have humongous size of investment going into a country,
Yeah.
of course, like India,
Yeah.
maybe we can set the terms of visas as well.
Yes.
You wanted to add something here, sir?
I should say that the visa regime has become quite difficult after 9/11. It is the result of 9/11.
Even before 9/11,
And before
there
9/11,
was some difficulty in getting American visa for,
I
for
tell
that
you
matter.
that in the 80s and the 90s, I used to travel a lot to East Asian countries, and I
No, but
had a
they
free
were
entry.
open already at that time.
I had a free entry into
Thailand.
Japan, Korea, and Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, and so many other East Asian countries. So visa regime is related to 9/11 incidents. So that's why they are verifying and making it difficult that terrorists and those kind of elements should not enter their country. So
Right.
that is one. But if you look at the history of Western countries, they actually offer very relaxed visa regimes to many investors and businessmen to come and invest there. So you can see the example of Great Britain, you can see the example of many Western countries, Canada, Australia. So in the same way, we have to make our visa regime relaxed for the Chinese visitor, because China
No, but
has...
you just told me that our visa regime is quite relaxed.
Yes, quite relaxed.
So we have to relax it further.
Yes, if there are some difficulties and
Okay.
some businessmen are facing kind of difficulties, we should
I'm
make it
told
much
that we
easier.
have to actually conclude the program, but here's one question that I have to put to you. And that is, Hassan Iqbal Sahab recently spoke about a knowledge corridor with the West, where universities can come and our students can go abroad. Can we ask or invite our Chinese friends to invest in universities or education sector as well?
Yes, why not?
Because we have to work on innovation, and
Yes.
they are good at that. We are
Yes.
not.
Well, you put a very good question, and I think that if you look at the history of ancient Silk Road, it was a knowledge corridor as well.
Right.
You see, so number of institutions, number of scientists, you can see they were born along the old Silk Road destinations. And CPAC is basically a knowledge corridor. And under the CPAC, 5 universities are already planned.
Okay.
And so number of
Planned by the
students,
government of Pakistan or China?
jointly.
Okay. And they'll have Pakistani names.
They have Pakistani names.
Right. That is also important. Ambassadors are very quickly if you want to
This
say
is,
something.
it reminded me of our own tradition and our own background. The old saying that if you have to seek knowledge, go to China.
Right.
Is because
What happens when you're sitting next to China, actually?
so
Right.
that I think gets another meaning with this discussion.
Right, it does. Dr. Sab, you want to?
Well, I will just say there is no free lunch in this world, and of course, in order to make it palatable and delicious lunch, we have to do the work at home. So, if we are
Right.
prepared, of course, it's a huge and tremendous
Yeah, my concern is
opportunity.
essentially the lack of homework, at least in the
Yes.
private sector. I cannot speak about the public sector because they must be doing something. I'm not privy to that. But on that note, I have to conclude the program. Dr. Abid Qayyum Salari Saab, thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Ambassador Ali Sarwar Naqvi Saab, thank you very much. It is always great having you in the show. Dr. Ahmad Rashid Malik Saab, thank you very much, sir, for being here as well. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.